Kumo tyres, design technology.
Welcome to the second round of the 2000 season of European truck trialling here on Eurosport. The 11th year of the championship and the second venue in the season, Roppen in Austria, set high in the heart of the Tyrol Mountains, the famous skiing resorts of Innsbruck and Imst. And it's just close to the River Inn, you saw there, a tributary of the Danube, from which Innsbruck gets its name. And here is the mayor of the town, Anton Auer. And he's saying for the last 4 years we've been organising motorbike events here in Roppen, and this was really the key that motivated us to organise this truck trial competition here, to diversify the range of sports we're holding here in the Tyrol by hosting the second round of this year's Europa Truck Trial Championship. And of course, the winter sport events, very well known in the Alps, but plenty of summer sports and truck trialling being added to them. We start our look at the event with the second of the production classes, Series S2. This is the Austro-German team, Olaf Hoffmann and Reinhard Leopold in a Russian Gaz. Neither of them will be new to truck trialling fans. Austrian Reinhard Leopold was a European champion in this class in 95 and 96, for those of you with long memories. And Olaf Hoffmann, the German, was a runner-up in the championship in 96 to the man he now partners, Reinhard Leopold. As you can see, conditions ideal here. Nice, warm, dry weather and not too much slush underfoot. This is another vehicle, the same section, number 17, this German team from Kloppenburg, Clemens Rentgen and Friedhelm Kassem in one of the much more popular Unimogs, that's a U1300. And they, like all the others, threading their way around the course through marker canes, and those wooden poles have got coloured tape on, and each of the coloured bands of tape refers to one of the 7 classes, the 5 production and 2 prototype classes that make up the Europa truck trial. And the driver and co-driver have a short while before they go into the course with all the others to walk their way around and figure out which posts they actually have to aim for, because the route will be different for the bigger and for the smaller vehicles in the same sections. This is another German pairing. This is the husband and wife crew, Jürgen and Elke Kottkamp. And another Unimog, this is the U416 variety this time. Well, this is an occasional pairing. Sometimes Elke comes to accompany Jürgen, her husband, as his co-driver. Sometimes he's co-driven by Jörg Grofer. Well, the husband-wife pairing finishing 6th in the S2 category here in Austria. Well, for newcomers, it looks as though this is all a fairly low-speed sport and really dead simple. Just wait. There are some very, very demanding sections full of man-made and natural obstacles. And some of the inclines, I'm afraid the camera angle probably doesn't give you really the best view of it all. Once the cameraman has stood upright, it tends to flatten out some of the major slopes. But as you can see, even with four-wheel drive and big sand tyres, tractor tyres, it's not always easy to get grip. Here, very experienced duo, Wolfgang Alfers and Karl Rentgen in their Unimog U1300. Well, they did well here. They only got 6 penalty points. Penalty points are awarded, or, well, they are added onto your score for hitting canes or for reversing and trying again more than a certain number of times. Well, they scored 6 points. The people who scored worst in the section scored 300, and that's a complete maximum score. And Wolfgang Alfers and Karl Rentgen go on to take 3rd place here, just 2 points away from 2nd. And incidentally, again, for those of you new to the sports, the numbers on the trucks are all very important. Let's run through this one. This is 202/209. That means it's being shared by two crews, basically. 202, it's in Class 2, and the second and third digit, 02 or 09, generally reflect, particularly for the lower numbers, where they finished in last year's championship. So the crew that drive this as 202 were last year's runners-up. As 209, it's crewed by Olivier Renou and Carl Guillemot. They finished fourth in the first round of the championship, again in Roppen, the pairing also finishing in fourth place. Well, it's not always the case that the last digit means where they finished, or the last two digits mean where they finished in last year's championship. Sometimes newcomers add to the class, and obviously they are given numbers next up in sequence. And sometimes there are the odd missing numbers from the class, as people have changed class over the winter. This is a different section. This is section number 5. As you can see, a very different part of the quarry facility. 205 here, Buurmir Cap and Radovan Svander in an Avia. Now this is a Czech combination, not just the driving crewing, but the Avia as well. They're on home ground on the first round of the section. But they had big problems in the first round of the championship, rather. They had big problems in one section there, and they have big problems here as well. A split second of inattention, and they roll just as they did at home. But as you can see, safety here is paramount. They may not wear much in the way of fireproof overalls often, but they do all wear helmets. They've got safety belts on their racing style seats in the cabs, and as you can see, these massive rollover structures. They really do take the seriousness of safety to heart in this event. But here again we have changed sections. This is section 13. This is the French team of Jackie Ribot and Bertrand Pouponneau in number 202 this time, the truck that they share with Olivier Renou and Carl Guillemot, their compatriots that we saw earlier on. These two really are very experienced. The Rodez firemen, they're both firemen, and this year eschewing the traditional chromed fireman's helmet. Looks like something from the Napoleonic Wars that sapeur-pompiers traditionally wear. They've been using those as safety helmets for many years, but now they've gone for a slightly more modern look. They started strong on this opening section. They scored well in the Czech Republic, and they score well here as well. And in fact, they are so far ahead. I remember I told you second and third in class were separated by just 2 places. They leaders of the competition, Jackie Ribot there and Bertrand Pouponneau, were 209 points clear of the opposition. Number 204, this is another Czech duo. Czechs becoming more and more familiar here. Pavel Kacek and Pavel Bernacek, and they were really the icebreakers for the Czech crews. And this is their Praha UV80, a Czech truck. Of course, the name is the Czech word for the capital of the country of the Czech Republic, Prague. And the two Pavels certainly don't mind a bit of reversing through their sections. You don't have to do it forwards, incidentally. You can go forwards or backwards. And what you do tend to lose points for is changing your mind halfway. And it's certainly not uncommon to see the two Pavels reversing their way through a fair percentage of the tests on offer. And again, with a long drop down into the water and most of the weight on the front wheels, they decide to go down backwards. 207, another German pairing. This is Wolfgang Abel and Wolfgang Müller. Now, Volker Abel, I beg your pardon. Volker normally co-driven by Jürgen Abel, but he was unable to attend at the last moment, and so Wolfgang Müller stepping in. And these guys in another of the Unimogs. This is another 416. If you wonder what the co-drive is doing, at the moment he just seems to be sitting there like a sack of spuds and not paying an awful lot, not playing an awful big part in here. But of course, don't forget, this isn't a motorcycle or a small off-road vehicle, even as insubstantial as a Land Rover or a Range Rover. These things are big, and these are the small trucks. A lot of the co-driver's job is to tell the driver what's going on 3 or 4 feet away from him on the other side of the vehicle, because of course you have to miss the canes with the side that you can't see, and that can be often particularly tricky. 201. These are the brothers, Dirk and Torsten Baum, winners in Class 2 last year in a Unimog 416. They always perform with great panache. very experienced and very successful pairing they are as well, Dirk and Torsten Baum. And they always put on a bit of a show, well received by the public, because they're not averse to taking the odd risk, and despite that, still the reigning champions in the category 2. Well, often the risks that you take do tend to bite you back, and Dirk and Torsten here just gently rolling their Unimog over onto its side. As you might imagine, a lot of these competitors actually associated with the truck business or off-road vehicles in one way or another. And all of these trucks privately owned, privately run. And so they do tend to be careful what they do. Well, Dirk and Torsten only finishing 5th here because it's the French firemen that win it from Volker Abel and stand-in co-driver Muller. Back with more in a moment.
Dissipating sidewalls, extra wide tread for increased traction. All coming together to create exceptional performance. Design technology. Inntal.
On British Eurosport tonight, when you're driving in the fastest motorsport on Earth, you need nerves of steel, lightning reflexes and fearless focus. Cars from Michigan, tonight at 7 on British Eurosport.
Sponsored by Honda. Kumho Tires, design technology. And AT&T Direct Service. It's all within your reach.
On British Eurosport from August 8th. If it's extreme, it's in. With motocross, skateboarding, BMX, as well as inline skating and even boulder climbing. The Yoz ISPO Summer Games. From Tuesday, August 8th on British Eurosport.
Powered by Honda.
Welcome back to the Europa Truck Trial 2000, and we continue our look at round 2 in Austria with the Series 3 class. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of each round, the drivers have a chance to look around the course. This is also a part of the tradition. They draw lots to decide in which order they will run. So they don't always run in the same order, which means that not everybody gets the disadvantage of having to run first, because, of course, as you're watching your opponents go round, you see where they go wrong. And later runners, well, they balance the experience of having watched other people do it against the fact that sometimes the course can cut up quite badly. The winners of the shortest straw draw, 303, the Dutch team Johan Bussink Jr. and Johan Bussink Sr. They have a Magirus 6x6. It weighs 6 tons, develops 160 kilowatts. Last year, the father and son pairing were 3rd in the final rankings, but they missed the first round of the championship in the Czech Republic. Here in the same section, this is an Austrian team, Thomas Langmeier and Jürgel Hacki. And they have a Steyr. This is a 680 M3. 6.1 tons, so pretty much the same as the Magirus, but only develops 110 kilowatts compared to the 160 of the Magirus that went before them. Now, they're a brand new team to this year's championship, but they certainly have some off-road experience. The Austrians fared well and finished in 4th place on this, their first venture. And this is quite often the way that newcomers to the Trial Championship arrive. They will do maybe their home round, and maybe only their home round in their first season, and then with that taste of it under their belts, work on their vehicle, work to get some sponsorship and appear for maybe the whole of the next season. 314, this is a new Maz. This is the heaviest and the most powerful vehicle in its class. The Russian heavyweight weighs in at 8.5 tons and with 300 kilowatts, almost double the power of the Magirus. Ukrainian ace Viktor Moskios. I knew I was going to have trouble with it. Moskovskich, in fact, and his co-driver is from Belarus, Andrei Rudnitsky. All drivers struggling for grip on what looks as though it should be a very straightforward surface. It is, of course, very, very small loose chippings, and the 8-ton weight, despite all that power, is a bit of a disadvantage here. .302 on the same part of the section. This is the Austrians. This is Gerhard and Michael Muth, another of the Steyrs. And they are, in fact, the only team to manage to get cleanly through the gate at the top of this section. You can see why. Uphill at an angle on the loose surface. Very tricky indeed. So another father and son pairing. And the Austrians doing pretty well. Sometimes you just need to give it a bit of welly. And through they go, all 6 wheels spinning hard. Changing sections, this is our first view of section 25, and our first view in round 2 at least of the Gamma Goat. This articulated, 6-wheel driven military platform. It's a gun, a rocket, a communications platform designed in the late 50s, early 60s for the American military. And this is the reigning champion in this class, Frank Langenberg, and new co-pilot Peter Eberhardt. Well, the driver, Frank Langenberg, is Dutch. His co-driver, Peter, is German. But the champions struggling here in this section. 254 penalty points, and that is a massive amount. This Gamma Goat, this bizarre-looking object, is normally very adept at finding its way around, but they just don't seem to have the rub of the green in section 25 here in Austria. Well, the winners of this section with a 1-point advantage over their rivals are Rudolf Reicher Jr. and Werner Medved, and they're in a ZIL 131. This is an Austrian team who long-time viewers of the Europa truck trial will certainly recognize Rudolf Reicher Jr. Rudolf Reicher Sr. was originally his driver, and Rudolf Reicher Jr., the son, was the co-driver, and then he came as a driver on his own with Werner Medved as his co-driver. They've been away from the championship for a few years, but with the ZIL, they show great potential for the championship by winning the round at Roppen. Same section, number 19, with Russian team in a Russian truck. This is the very traditional looking Ural. This is the 43206 Ural. Vladimir Nyman is the driver. Ivan Bolotov, his co-driver. And appropriately enough, their Ural truck, named of course after the massive mountain range in the western part of the Soviet Union, or former Soviet Union, they come from Mias, which is in the Ural Mountains. And this is their 12th season in the European Championship. They've been here right from the word go. And still entertaining in their Russian heavyweight. And here we have German pairing, husband and wife combo, the first that we've seen so far from the Austrian round. Udo and Beta Heidenreich and their Unimog 2450. Well, they won the opening round in the Czech Republic, but here they run into trouble. They ended their Austrian sojourn in the first section they tried, and this is it. They broke their axle, and that is as far as it goes for the husband and wife pairing that won in the Czech Republic. They score nothing at all from Austria. fierce competitors, but a win in the Czech Republic and a breakage in Austria will hamper them. It's Austrians first and second on the podium. The Dutch and German combination, Langenberg and Ehrhardt in third. Looking now at the first of the prototype classes. This is P1, and here we find the well-known Bulles trial mog. This is Wolfgang Bulles and Oliver Enders, their prototype, hand-built, vaguely around a Unimog, well, not vaguely around a Unimog, but around a Unimog running gear. And as you can see here, you custom build your own body chassis. You can put your own drivetrain and engine combinations together. In fact, in the prototype class, you can do pretty much what you will. Well, on this section, they earn 120 penalty points. And despite that whopping score, they are, in fact, the lowest scorers through this class in this section. So these large rocks proving very tricky indeed for the prototypes. Now listen to this. Would it come as any surprise to tell you that this is called a Uni-Rover? Yes, indeed, it's Unimog underpinnings and a Rover V8. This is the Spanish team, Ramon Francesa and Rafael Bea. And they go through this particular section with no points. They win the Austrian round, scoring 54 less than Bulles and Enders. There's that big waffling Rover V8 again. Quite unusual. In fact, I'm sure it's a unique engine in this championship. Well, 6:03, the Spaniards were third in last year's championship in prototype class 1 or class 6. And here are the reigning champions. German driver Horst Blodau and German co-driver Charlie Steigelbauer and their Unimog special. Taking things nice and easily, trying to ease their way through. Finally, in section 7, Austrian pairing in the number 602 machine, Karl Favrik and Wolfgang Kunschik. This is their prototype Jolly Jumper. At least I think that's what they called it. Well, the Austrians with 240 kilowatts and only 2.6 tons. Good power to weight ratio. Well, they broke their gearbox in the opening round at the Czech Republic. So far, though, those problems seem to be far behind them. No problem with stalling the engine. There's a nice generous time limit on almost all of these stages. So Wolfgang Bulles and Oliver Enders, just 54 points clear of Ramon Francesa and Rafael Bea. Spaniards in the Uni-Rover taking second. more truck trialling from Austria in just a moment, so stay with us.
What have these stars got that gives their performance the edge? What have they done to be so focused, so single-minded, so brilliant? To push themselves beyond the limits. Before the event, they get the right attitude, an attitude you'll find on Gold. Insight and Eurosport have collected together these 60 original gold medal tracks on 4 CDs or cassettes. Nearly 4 hours worth that sum up every aspect of every brilliant performance you've ever seen on Eurosport. Gold you buy direct by picking up the phone, so call now. At Insight, we know great music when we hear it.
On British Eurosport this Friday and Saturday, F3000 and the future aces of Formula One are going head-to-head. Minassian against Junqueira, France versus Brazil, 38 points each, 3 victories each, with just 3 races to go. But as they race to Hockenheim, it's Minassian who's on a roll. F3000 from Hockenheim, Friday night at 5:30, Saturday afternoon at 1:30, live on British Eurosport.
British Eurosport is British Eurosport's brand new Tour de France competition for cycling fans. Test your knowledge and you could win a fantastic Hope Cinema by answering this question. Who just won the Tour de France? An exclusive range of sweatshirts are also up for grabs. If you know the answer, grab your phone and ring this number now. 0906 614 0027. 0906 614 0027. And play and win. Play and win with British Eurosport. On British Eurosport tonight, when you're driving in the fastest motorsport on Earth, you need nerves of steel, lightning reflexes and fearless focus. Cars from Michigan, tonight at 7 on British Eurosport.
Sponsored by Honda. Kumho Tires, design technology. And AT&T Direct Service. It's all within your reach.
Welcome back to round 2 of the Europa Truck Trial 2000 at Austria. And we are now in the biggest category of trucks. This is Class 5. These are the production monsters. Attacking section 27 with a long and difficult downhill run. This is 503. Friedhelm Biermann and Mario Marchi, German pairing in their 14-ton Tatra 813. As regular viewers will know, I never tire of saying, if you're going to have a truck, in my opinion, then have a truck. Unimogs are fine, but get some weight behind you. And these things really are great-looking monsters. The same section, the same run, but this is 506, another Tatra 813, and the German pairing Mario Westgertling and Daniel Waldhelm. You may wonder why it hasn't got a windscreen. Well, that is to stop them smashing it if they splash down into the water at too high a rate. Onboard camera. Okay, we're level now. Now just watch the angle of tilt. Nose down, nose down, nose down, nose down, and right down it goes. 45-degree angle and greater down the slope. And And if you've never done it, nosing out into thin air over an edge is fairly daunting for the first few times. And they get a warm round of applause from the crowd. See how careful they need to be. The crowd are actually very close indeed to proceedings, and so the drivers being extra cautious on these tight runs. Backing it up again. Good view there from on board. Excellent stuff. This is 5:01, the reigning champions. This is the Dutchmen, Wim Kampschreuer and Henk Alders. Another Thatcher, another 813, and they have been really the benchmarks in this class for many years. Well, you saw in the musical clip earlier on that there was plenty of water about somewhere in the quarry, and here it was, section 15. Back in and forward out, up a different route. Not a compulsory way through, but it's certainly the one that the champions have chosen. And of course, the need there to keep up a bit of speed to keep A, water out of the cab, and B, water out of the engine is quite important. 511. This is a German trio, the first three crew that we've seen so far. Uwe Huppertz, Fred Kutscher and Ralf Raudnitscher, the second of the co-drivers. Everything looking good as they go into the water. And then starting to look not quite so good. It's get off as much of your clothing as possible and get out time. Always plenty of willing hands to help tow stricken vehicles out. Again, one of the huge quarry vehicles on hand, which makes even the Thatcher look like a bit of a lightweight. And that's not an easy task. 518 here, a Russian team. Alexander Yemaev and Nikolai Belov. And this Russian crew in 518, not in a Thatcher. This is the first non-Thatcher in the class. It's a heavyweight Ural 5323. It's the lightest in this 8x8 class though, weighs only 13.2 tons. And they've got 3 years experience here in this truck. They were 6th in the Czech Republic, 3rd in Austria. Alexander says, all this is new to me. It's my first European season, yet back home after 3 years, I am the reigning Russian champion. Well, good to see him coming out on the European circuit. Great to see drivers and crews and spectators from a host of different nations. And this is the one that they all come to see, the big drop at Rodden. Section 11. The public have been queuing here for quite some while in the tip-off from the organisers that this is going to be a spectacle. And in fact, only one of the competitors decides to try it. And this is Ronald Bormann in his 15-ton MAN. Well, again, the camera not really giving you quite the degree of angle here. Don't forget, the horizon looks level, but it's not. That's the side of a mountain going up into the sky. So tilt your head over to the left a little bit. And then you can see the spectators standing on the banking there aren't vertical on your TV picture. That's because they are standing vertical and the camera has been tilted over a little. You can hear all that loose scree rattling away down the hill as it's disturbed by the truck. And Ronald Bormann doing a pretty impressive job. It would have been interesting to see a few of the others attempt it, but they decided not to. Full marks all round for bravery for Ronald Bormann. Wim Kampschreuer and Henk Alders, the all-Dutch pairing, on top though in Class 5 in Austria. Looking now at the smallest of the categories. This is Series 1, the smallest and the lightest four-wheel drive trucks, and largely a Unimog-dominated class like Series 2. This is Thomas Fleckenstein and Klaus Kolb, a pair of Germans in a 404S. Oh dear. Well, he got the front wheels through, but completely flattened the pole there with the back. This is section 23, and it's proving a touch tricky. Again, getting out. And they are counted out of the section. Next one off is 106. This is German team Gunter Kaiser and Kersten Scheckendijk. Their Unimog 404S. And this is on the same section. Very difficult section, lots of gates, and the co-drivers really need to concentrate, otherwise things like that happen. And every gate that you miss is 60 penalty points. Going through a gate that you shouldn't, that is only there for other classes, that's 40 penalty points. Every time you go through a gate a second time, i.e. if you have to reverse out and try again, you lose 40 points. 40 points for going the wrong way through a gate. Plenty of points also for knocking them down. Well, they nearly got through everything before digging themselves into that hole and had to be lifted out. Same section, and this is the Belgian pairing of 104, Stefan Ertz and Marian Glabus. Well, they made a good start to the season. They've had 2 wins out of 2 starts. Victory in the Czech Republic, followed by victory here in Austria. Well, this highly technical section, the most tricky technically of all of them. They score just 112 points. That tells you how hard it was. In some sections, the best scores will be 0. They scored 112. But in fact, only 2 vehicles managed to get through the entire zone from this class. Stefan Ertz confirming later that it was pretty tricky. These sections here in Austria, he says, were pretty difficult. The ground is really fairly soft, but lots of rocks in it, and lots of steep slopes. The Unimog 406 is very easy to roll, he says, so it was pretty tough. Well, they managed to avoid tipping it over. Changing zones now. This is an Austrian team. 105 is Dietmar and Michel Kotterer, Unimog 404S, and this is another father and son pairing. They were second in the Czech Republic, and they do well here as well. Second place in Austria. They're in section number 15, one of the number of water sections. They seem to have judged this one just about right. Well, here on the same section, plenty of fine gravel around these gates. Number 107 is the German pairing, Michel Köhler and Burkhard Leicht. And they have a great run through here. They get out of this section having dropped just 6 points. Well, next up for a potential early bath, 112. This is another Unimog 406 and another German pairing, Udo Martin Bühler and Jörg Hörnickel. Neatly negotiated that little obstacle. And the Unimog, quite a rarity in Great Britain, but so common in Germany and Austria. Is so used to seeing these around in rural areas and in industrial locations. And I bet they don't often have to put up with half of the conditions that they do here on the Europa truck trial. Well, There is the result then from S1.
Heat dissipating sidewalls. Extra wide tread for increased traction. All coming together to create exceptional performance. Design technology. Inntal.
On British Eurosport tonight, when you're driving in the fastest motorsport on Earth, you need nerves of steel, lightning reflexes and fearless focus. Cars from Michigan, tonight at 7 on British Eurosport.
Sponsored by Honda. Kumho Tires, design technology. And AT&T Direct Service. It's all within your reach.
On British Eurosport this Friday and Saturday, F3000 and the future races of Formula One are going head-to-head. Minassian against Junqueira, France versus Brazil. 38 points each, 3 victories each, with just 3 races to go. But as they race to Hockenheim, it's Minassian who's on a roll. F3000 from Hockenheim. Friday night at 5:30, Saturday afternoon at 1:30, live on British Eurosport.
Back to the Europa trial with Kumho Tires, design technology.
Welcome back to Austria for round 2 of the Europa Truck Trial 2000. This is the Series 4 class, second largest of the production-based categories. We start in section number 17, one of the trickiest. And this is 406, German duo Andreas Pusch and Michael Landmann in their Ural 4320. And their truck regular appearers here on Eurosport in previous seasons of Europa Truck Trialing. Thumbs up there from the marshal who's checking that gate. They got through nice and cleanly. And also, as we've seen before, reversing through sections to make life that little bit easier with regard to traction. Changing sections, this is zone number 19. This in 409, which is a Maz, is a team from Belarus, Peter Orsik and Dmitry Miga. And the team from Belarus with their Russian truck, doing a nice steady job through 19. Very slippery underfoot again. Same section, this is a different machine, 411. This is a Faun. Quite an unusual truck. Don't see an awful lot of those anywhere. German pair have found this and pressed it into Europa Truck Trial service, and they are Philipp Fakin and Michael Westphal. It really is quite a unique looking machine in this series. We're used now to seeing the upright shape of the Urals, but this really is very much a square rigged machine with a roll cage to suit. Well, this is the same Ural that we saw earlier, driven this time by Wolfgang Bitzer and Ralf Eichner. The Germans starting their 11th year as Europa Truck Trial contenders. And they're always right up there in contention. They certainly have plenty of experience to call on when they need to. Here is the long downhill section number 9. German duo in 404. are Hermann Krahenberg and Frank Paulik. And their machine, not one of the more common makes either. It's a Mercedes, or a Daimler-Benz if you prefer. 2631. Here they are working their way through another tricky little section. Lots of loose sand, lots of big rocks. They seem to be finding the grip here in the climb, but now as the camera pulls back, look how steep that is. Don't forget the horizon not quite level there yet either. In Austria, and maybe a bit of water having a bit of a cooling effect as they go through it, but it's also churning this section up. Very, very tricky indeed. 403 is Jochen Bertler and Mark Herrmann, and the German pairing working their way through the deep mud in their Iveco, and then trying to get up that steep slope that finishes immediately. Follows it immediately, then down the steep section into the water and back out again. And as we've seen before, reversing down and driving back up, quite a common way of doing it. Whoever thought up Zone 13 has got a very warped sense of humour. Here 401 negotiates it. This is the Steyr 1491 of the Austrian team, Helmut Kröpfel and Hermann Ancini. They're the reigning champions, and they are real veterans of the trial series as well. They have also cropped up in the last 10 seasons of Europa truck trialing. And whatever they do, wherever they go, whatever the conditions, they always seem to be pretty much there or thereabouts. Last year particularly so, as they won their class and became the last Class 4 champions of the last century. Same route here. This is 402 though. Last year's championship runners-up, Peter Nedergesas and Gregor Haas, another Iveco. This 260/30. Well, Peter working well in the mud. Before he had his run through, the previous 6 runners had not managed to get through at all. So he broke that string of failures. Great camera shot there showing the truck just hanging on its front wheels almost as it slips down there, metaphorically by its fingertips. So ending our look at Class 4 then, and this is the second team from Belarus, and this is the team with the co-driver with a name that I would quite happily see changed by Deepole. Driver Sergei Kruk, and despite the fact that I've practiced this several times, his co-driver Dmitry Zaporoshenko. First time, goodness me, Martin, well done. In their Maz 631739. Well, Sergei Kruk joined the trial championship last year, and he finished well down in the championship orders, 12th indeed, as his number shows. And here in Austria, in Roppen, at the end of the first day, he was just 9th, but he made up for it with a fine run on Sunday to take runner-up spot overall. Big difficulty here, says Sergei, is the lack of grip, especially for me. Section 19, I really copped it on Saturday with a huge haul of penalty points. The rest, though, I really liked, he said, and he certainly did. The Belarus pairing in second place to Nedergesas and Haas, the reigning champions. Looks like the team from Belarus are joining battle for this year's title. Well, looking here now at the second of the prototype classes. This is Class 7, or P2, section number 1, and the aces, the reigning champions in this category, are Austrian, and they are Josef Auinger and Fritz Holub. And they are also veterans of this sport, and they use all of their considerable know-how, as well as the abilities of their truck, to squeeze through here. And their highly developed Ural. Look at the number plate there. AM is their local registration town, and Ural P2. So showing off their allegiances in their road-based vehicle. This is 702. This is a Skoda, and as you might expect from a Czech mark, it is a Czech pairing, father and son combination again. This is Jaroslav Vonvosky Sr. and Jaroslav Vonvosky Jr. And in fact, they are performing better here in Austria than the reigning champions and hometown heroes. In fact, it is the only section, though, where they outperform Auinger and Holub. One more competitor in this class, Leo Wolf. His Wolfmobile wrecked in the very first section he attempted. Let's hope that he manages to repair that before the next round of the championship, which will be in Great Britain. Well, Auinger and Holub beating Vonvosky's senior and junior, with Leo Wolf the only other competitor. But as Franz Turner, the organizer, says, the professionals in the championship all agreed that this is a good venue for the truck trial. That's why I wanted them to try it out at least once. Franz Turner incidentally owns the quarry and is a competitor himself. He said, I'm crazy about trucks. Of course, that goes with my job here at the quarry, and I just wanted them to come here and put on a good show, and they've certainly done that.
Was natürlich in der Natur unseres eigenen Berufes liegt.
So there you go, the end of round 2 of the Europa Truck Trial 2000. We'll leave you with the best moments from the Austrian weekend, but don't forget the next round from Great Britain, from Borden, will be shown on Eurosport on Monday, July the 31st at 8 p.m. Central European. That's 7 in the evening on British Eurosport. Monday, July the 31st for the first ever round of the Europa Truck Trial from Great Britain. Until then, it's goodbye from me, Martin Haven, and from our competitors here in Austria. Bye for now.